So Etienne, I see you use all the major banks out there. Markets are constantly shifting and changing, and the bank's appetite's always changing too. What is the bank's appetite currently in the current market conditions we're sitting in?
Well, I think there's a very simple answer to that. The bank's business is to lend money, and that will always be that.
Yeah.
While one has to understand that sometimes they need to be slightly conservative, especially with certain application types, they want to borrow. And we see it every day in our dealings with them. You know, we have channels in place with all of the banks. There's specific people designated from each department to help us and to streamline our processes. So I think the common misconception sometimes of the public out there is it's very hard to get a bond and the banks don't want to lend money, but nothing could be further from the truth. They do, but obviously they need to put certain measures in place to make sure that they minimize their risk as well.
Sure.
My job is to facilitate that process for the home buyer in as hassle-free a way as possible, and to obviously ensure the best outcome on his home loan application.
Okay, do you want to maybe just go through a bit of the processes that you do from a service level?
Sure.
To the consumer?
So it starts with a pre-qualification, where we assist buyers in finding out what their options are. Some people we know very quickly on in the process will not qualify for a 100% bond because their credit rating isn't high enough, isn't good enough. And there could be various factors for that. There's a lot of young people buying houses, first-time buyers, that hasn't built up a sufficient credit record. It's got nothing to do with bad debt. It's just that, as silly as this sounds, there isn't enough of it.
Yeah.
I think what some people don't understand is a credit record works like this. You have to have debt to make debt. And the only way that the banks can determine what kind of a payer you are is by looking at your current debt and how you've been managing it. So that is sometimes a bit of an issue. But yeah, we identify that early on in the process with the pre-qualification. We look at affordability based on all kinds of different income types. Commission earners, we deal with quite a bit of overseas workers. You know, South Africans earning foreign income. That comes up quite a lot, and I think especially in those cases it's important to work with a specialist that knows how to motivate and structure that application to the banks correctly.
Yeah. Tell me just an off-the-cuff question here is that can the consumer, the client, come directly to you for advice based on their credit rating, or do they have to go through a real estate agent?
They can absolutely come to us directly. A big majority of our business comes from estate agents, purely because that's the first contact point between home buyer and property, basically. So the agent would normally refer the client to us and say, can you assist with the pre-qualification, or this person is interested in buying, helping with options or with the process of applying for a bond. But yes, to answer your question, the general public out there is more than welcome to contact us directly, and I think at the end of this video clip we'll show a bit of contact details for people on how they can get hold of us.
Absolutely. So Etienne, let's talk interest rates. Everybody wants lower interest rates. What are the factors that the banks are looking at in pointing the interest rates to specific clients?
Also a good question, Wayne, and one that we get asked quite often. There's two main factors that the banks look at. The one is your deposit. It plays a vital role in the kind of rate that the banks offer you. And the other is the way that your application scores on the bank's system. Now that takes into account all of the information that we feed into the application and on the system, and that then firstly indicates whether the application is successful, and then what kind of rate is linked to the approval. So I think what one must keep in mind is that the bank is financing an asset, which in this case is a property. If they have to finance the full value of that asset, it's high risk for them. So if you are able to contribute a deposit of at least 10%, 20, 30% sometimes, you're significantly lessening their risk, and they reward you for that by giving you a concession on the rate.
So I can come and talk to you after this interview about dropping my rates by less than prime. Is that what I'm hearing?
What I can promise you is we'll do our best. I think it's a good point to mention, Wayne, because some people, maybe we should be talking to the older market now, who bought properties way back when we got the prime -2 interest rates.
Sure.
The fact is, we don't get those rates anymore, and there's good reasons for that. The economy plays a big role in that. but also I think the banks have been forced to run their businesses more profitably, and that means less concession on interest rates. What I can say about our process is that because of the fact that we multi-submit the application to various banks, we are able to give each bank an opportunity to put their best offer in, and sometimes more than once compared to the other banks, so that we at the end of the day give the client the best offer that the market offers.
And while we're on interest rates, what's your view on fixed rates and advice to the consumers on fixing rates? I see a lot of first-time home buyers are scared of interest rates going up, and could it, it affects their bottom line in their pocket at the end of the day. What's your advice on that?
So personally, I've never been a fan of fixing an interest rate, purely just because no one knows, especially in our country, no one knows what's around the corner and what's going to happen next year, let alone in 5 years' time. So important also to note that it does come at a higher rate. If you fix your interest rate, it is significantly higher than what your variable rate would be. And there's also maximum terms at which you can fix your rate. So it's definitely not for the full duration, 20, sometimes 30 years that a bond term is. It's maximum 5 years with most of the banks. And so the fact that it comes at a higher rate from the start, for me, sort of disqualifies it. And one must maybe look at it at different times. Like I said, we don't know what's around the corner. Next year it might be a different situation. But I don't want to talk politics, but I think we're in for a good run economically with the new leadership. So I wouldn't fix an interest rate at this point in time.
Awesome, I agree with you.